Go Big Reds! This is Mr. Fischel talking, and we're starting learning target number 7. This is the last learning target in Unit 1. So pretty soon you're going to be having our last quiz and first test of the year. If you look at learning target 7, it says, I can prove lines are parallel using angle pairs formed by intersecting lines and by parallel lines and a transversal. And it gives a bunch of different things here. Now, we're going to talk about success criteria. For you to be successful, I want you to be able to fill in a missing step in a proof. Now, you're probably thinking, what exactly is a proof? What is a proof? All right. Well, proof is based on what's called deductive reasoning. And in order to use deductive reasoning, what you're going to use are facts, things that you know that are true, definitions, obviously things we know that are true, accepted properties, and laws of logic. Okay, so you're probably familiar with facts, definitions, accepted properties, things that you know that are true. But, laws of logic may be something a little different. Okay, so what do I mean by a law of logic? Well, one of them is called the transitive property. All right, transitive property basically is pretty straightforward. If A equals B, if B equals C, therefore A has to be equal to C. Well, you're saying, duh, of course that makes sense, Mr. Fischel. We're not stupid. I didn't say you were, but I'm saying that this is the transitive property. This is one of those laws of logic that you use in proofs, okay? So let's say if I made up some stuff. Let's say I say Mario has $5 on him, right? And let's say I have Khalil also has $5. What do you know about that? If Mario has $5, Khalil has $5, therefore, Mario has the same amount of money as Khalil. Right? Mario has 5, Khalil has 5, so they have the same amount of money. Makes sense, right? And if you think more in math terms, if A is equal to 5 and B is equal to 5, then obviously A is going to be equal to B. That's the transitive property, right? Okay, so let's talk about a specific proof example, and I'd like you to be writing all this out, of course, right? So let's start a proof. Proof always starts with a given and something you're trying to prove. And underneath there are things called statements and reasons. Because there's got to be a reason for every statement. Everything is factual. It's all deductive, right? So we're going to start off with, we want to be given, let's say we're given the measure of angle 1 is 65 degrees. The measure of angle 2 is 65 degrees. We want to prove the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 2. Now you're thinking, it's obvious. Some of these are obvious, but first things first, number 1, we're going to write the measure of angle 1 equals 65 degrees. And the reason for that is given. Whenever you have a proof and you start off with something that's in the given statement, it's always given. Number 2, the measure of angle 2 equals 65 degrees. That is also given. And this is a very short proof. So step 3, therefore, the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 2. Now, if we're just looking, we need a reason for that. And the reason can't be proved. That is not a reason. Okay? So we look over here, and we were talking about the transitive property, right? Mario has $5, Cole has $5, and they have the same amount of money. If A equals 5 and B equals 5, then A equals B. That's called the transitive property. So let's go back over our proof again. Measure of angle 1 is 65, measure of angle 2 is 65. So measure of angle 1 equals measure of angle 2. That is due to the transitive property. All right. Good. All right, now, it's not, like I said, in deductive reasoning, you can always use facts, definitions, accepted properties, and laws of logic. Right. I'm going to show you a little more complex proof. All right. I'd like you to stop the video and write this down, please. Stop the video and write this down. Okay, I'm assuming you just got done writing it all down, so we'll go on. Now here, it has a diagram up here, and it says given angle 1 and angle 3 are a linear pair. Angle 2 and angle 3 are a linear pair. Remember linear pair right next to each other? We agree with that, right? They want us to prove measure of angle 1 equals measure of angle 2. And those would be, remember, vertical angles? Yeah. So we start off with listing the two given statements. Angle 1 and angle 3 are a linear pair. Angle 2 and angle 3 are a linear pair. And the reason for that is given. All right, now, notice that the next step says angle 1 and angle 3 are supplementary angles. Angle 2 and angle 3 are supplementary angles. Well, what does that mean? Supplementary means they add up to 180. Now, the reason has to be, how do I know if they're a linear pair, they're supplementary angles? Well, I want to bring you back to yesterday's learning target. When you had yesterday's learning target, we said that all linear pairs add up to 180, right? They're all supplementary. So the reason could be a definition, right? So I could say it's a definition of linear pair. Okay? And then it says angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. They skipped a couple steps. They said definition of supplementary angles and transitive property. All right, so that means these two add up to 180. And then you substitute, you figured out angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 2. That's the definition of congruent angles. So again, if you know your definitions, you could fill in a missing step like this. So remember our success criteria. Let's go back to that. The success criteria today was I can fill in a missing step in a proof. So if you can do that, you're successful. All right, let's try another one. All right, so please take a moment to write this down. All right, I'm assuming you finished writing it down already, so we'll go on. So now up here for this diagram, you could see this is a transversal. There are two lines here, and it says L is parallel to N. That's what that means. L is parallel to N and cut by transversal R. We want to prove angle 1, measure of angle 1 equals measure of angle 7. Those are alternate exterior angles, right? So the first thing we do is write down the given statement. L is parallel to N and cut by transversal R. That's given. Then we know measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 5. Because since they are parallel lines, 1 and 5 are congruent to the same measure because there are corresponding angles. So definition of parallel lines and corresponding angles. It also says measure of angle 5 equals the measure of angle 7. Okay? 5 and 7, they're across from each other, they're vertical angles. Now, it tells us, last but not least, measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 7. I need a reason for that. All right? Well, we know 1 equals 5. We also know 5 equals 7. So it says, therefore, 1 equals 7. What property was that again? If you said transitive property, you would be correct. So I'll put a little arrow here. This is transitive property. Oops. Zoom out a little bit. That is transitive property for number 4. So again, we need to prove things using deductive reasoning. You always start with the given, end with what you're trying to prove. Then you have reasons. Those reasons could be facts, definitions, accepted properties, or laws of logic. So I've shown you 3 different proofs today. Make sure you have these written down and save these. Do not turn these into Mr. Fischel. You're going to need to study these for later. So, any questions? Okay, if you listen to this video, I'd like you to put a number 1 on the front board somewhere. Please put a number 1 on the front board. Thanks for listening, and go Big Reds.